Okay, we're trying again because, it does this weird thing where sometimes it just pops, at least this time it was somebody you know. It pops people into my live. And when I'm inviting people. So I was like probably just inviting Buddy, and instead it popped him in like we were going to co-host. Hey, Goofed Up, how are you today? Welcome back, Alice. Hello, Tracy. Come up and join me. I'm going to make myself big. How are you today, Tracy?
Oh, am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Hi.
Hi.
My screen is just blurry.
Benny, I like your new profile pic. DC. I'm cleaning the house, but I'll be listening if I can join. I will. Okay, DC, I like your new little, why can't I think of words? You know, your profile pic, but it's a thing, you know? Logo, thank you.
Got you.
I just can't think of words. Hopefully some other people will join us up here. Thank you, Seth. I don't know why I can't think of words. Maybe just not enough caffeine this morning yet. I don't know.
Ooh, go with
anyway.
Sigil is a better word. Benny
Sigil, that is a good word.
I like that better, yeah.
I do like that word. That was a good word.
Yeah.
Thank you for the hearts. So we're gonna do 12 and 13 today because 12's pretty short. 13 is also, as a matter of fact. So I just decided to group them together. And then next week we'll go over this thought. Oh, next week I might not be here. Next week I'm flying out to New York City to babysit for my grandbaby for a week while their nanny had an emergency. My son has to do a business trip, and my daughter-in-law is a doctor, so she needs somebody there, while she doctors and shit. So I get to babysit. I'm so excited.
While she doctors and shit.
Yeah, you know. Well, she does that doctoring stuff.
You know, while she goes and does doctor shit. I don't know what she does.
Yeah. Well, you know what she does? Do you watch any doctor shows?
Yeah. All of them.
You know?
Yeah.
You know what they do? That's what they all do, okay?
Damn. Doctor shit.
They do doctor shit. Now, she's amazing. She's a nephrologist. And since none of you know her, I'm going to tell you right now that she is she's very early on in her career, okay? Very early on in her career. And she was kind of upset because she found out she really wasn't getting paid what she should be getting paid. So she'd been kind of, making a little bit of noise about that at work, saying, hey, I know what other people are getting paid. I also know my worth. I know how much I do around here. She studies Nephilim. Nephilims. She's a nephilimologist. Do you see? No, she's a nephrologist. Anyway, and they ended up offering her the director of the ICU, which the person who is leaving that position is retiring. So he's at the end of his career. She's at the beginning of her career.
That's incredible.
Nephrologist. She is a kidney doctor. Nephrology. Okay, so if any of you guys want to come up, please just send me a guest request. Remember, on Wednesdays, I don't bring non-believers up, and I only bring friendlies that I know because we're having a Bible study, not a debate. I know you can't see it because I can't ghost anymore because they took away the ghost feature. I have to show you guys something. This little guy is rubbing against my little tripod. This is Sputnik. And that's why my camera keeps moving.
Wait, and again.
What?
I missed it. Show again.
Oh, he walked away. When he comes back over, I'll bring him back up. Here comes Benny.
Hello.
You gonna go under the bed now?
I'm so sorry
Okay.
I missed last week. But I do want to say,
you.
isn't it crazy that like God was upset about people building a city and a tower? A city
Yes.
and a tower. That's it.
Yes.
He's just upset about them building a city and a tower. New
Hi,
York be
Lucretia.
damned, right?
I was telling them that as a kid, like a lot of these stories, I just keep reading them and thinking, did I really read this the first, like when I was a Christian, like what kind of blinders did I have on? Like how indoctrinated was I? But anyway, do remember thinking that I didn't like that story as a kid because one, I thought, how stupid that they thought that they could build a tower that it would reach the heavens. Like, that's a weird thing to think you could do. That doesn't make any sense. Even as a kid, I thought that didn't make sense. But on top of it, I thought, why did God stop them when they were all getting along and doing something together?
Right, right. I mean, this must be why the beanstalk was cut down.
Yes.
I know, guys.
Okay,
I crack
you
myself
guys.
up sometimes.
I thought it was funny.
I thought it was great. All right, we're going to start with 12, 1 through 3. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred. What?
I am working, so I'm going to be on mute. And
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
All right.
Same, but I don't think there's anybody over on my side of the office, so I don't care.
If you guys see, if you're a mod and you see a friendly jump in the guest box, you can go ahead and let them up if I'm reading. You don't have to wait for me. Hi, T7. Okay.
I'm ready.
Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Okay, all I got from this was there's a lot of blessing going on here. And what I really wanted to know was, why did God choose Abram? Like did somebody sneeze in this chapter, in these verses? Because there's a lot of blessing going on. Like we're never told why he's chosen. It's just that he chose him. And so again, it makes me feel like God just randomly picks people he likes. He just plays favoritisms randomly. Like there's no rhyme or reason for it.
Yeah, none of these dudes have any like strong redeeming qualities.
No. And you know, even when they start out and go, oh, Abraham was this great guy, the next things we're going to hear about Abram at this point are not good things. He's not a good dude. I did want to point out that David Barton, who is a Christian nationalist, said that he said this, and he uses Genesis 12:3 as the only reason the U.S. should always support Israel. That's how he believes public policy should be made, and that's how people are making our public policies. They're using this Bible. And so when you're out there and you're debating and you're teaching and you're sharing, you're doing important work, because this verse should not be the reason that we support any country. No Bible should tell us why to support a country. No religious doctrine or dogma should tell us why we should or should not support a country.
If anything, God being the ultimate deity, we shouldn't have to support them because they've already won.
Exactly.
So
Big T, did you want to come up?
he's just trying to say, like, because of 12:3, since we support them, that we would also be blessed. Is
Yep.
that like the inference there? Okay.
Yep. Absolutely, that's what he says. That
Wow.
You want me to make you big? Let me make you big.
Simon Pierce. Oh yeah, right. Ugh.
Yeah,
Wait,
I just got, like, literally
where
while
did you
you're
get
reading,
that?
my doorbell rang and this came in from Amazon. So I'm gonna dig into this a little bit.
Is that the whole 922 pages?
No, this is somebody's interpretation
Oh,
of it.
interpretation. Okay. I was gonna
Like,
say.
well, I mean, they wrote about a lot of it, and I do
Mhm.
have the actual Project 2025 download to read through.
That's such a good resource, honestly, because, and I don't think we should even call it Project 2025 anymore. We should call it the 2025 Mandate for Leadership, because there was a
Yeah.
2016 mandate for leadership. There was a 1984 mandate for leadership. So, like, it's something that it's not just 2025, guys. It's going to be pushed, like, every time somebody tries to go
Well,
for, like, presidency from the right.
I
Anyway.
now
Absolutely.
I have to adjust my manuscript a little bit to show how many different organizations are contributing to this. But what's interesting is I already noticed a few contributing organizations that are already listed as hate groups.
Oh, yeah.
So
I can
that's
guarantee it.
continue.
Hey, you guys, if you are in the chat, I'd appreciate if you keep tapping the likes and maybe share this out to a few people who may have forgotten that Wednesday is Bible study. Okay, let's see. So, yeah. Okay, verses 4 and 5. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, and all the possessions that they had gathered, and the persons whom that they acquired in Haran, and they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan, and why did I stop there? Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, to the oak of Moreh, at the time of the Canaanites were in the land. So my notes here say the Canaanites are descendants of Ham. So at this point, we are supposed to consider these people to be bad, but we don't know why, but just because the Bible basically makes them out to be the bad guys.
Because Noah cursed Canaan, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, in
Oh,
reality, like, is that really a real fair
no,
reason? Like,
no.
you know?
Obviously, I mean,
And
I take that as post hoc, rationalization because they had darker colored skin. So
yeah,
they just wanted
yeah.
to come up with they must have been cursed.
Big T, you can you can talk when you want. If you don't have anything to say, you don't have to. But if you go like, hey, yeah, if you want to ask a question, Deborah's here. She's so knowledgeable. Benny's so knowledgeable, and we just kind of chat about it.
And I just made a totally invalid point after I reread the verse, so don't worry about it.
Well, thanks for having me up. Yeah, I'm trying to learn, so I just kind of come in when I can and pick up by osmosis little things. So I really appreciate you doing this every day and having me up. And I'll save my layman questions for
Okay,
the end.
It's all
all
right.
my commentary is very layman, by the way. The one thing I noticed is that we are just going to gloss over the fact that they said all the people they acquired. I'm assuming that means slaves.
In Haran. Yeah, I have this really cool program on my MacBook called eSword. I had to pay like $50, but it comes with like all kinds of resources. It's very much like Safaria, but for the New Testament and the Old Testament. But right now, let me see what I can pull from that for acquired in Haran. The journey from Haran to Canaan would entail the crossing of the river Euphrates. Okay, this blah blah blah.
Hi, Misery.
Yeah, never mind. They didn't have anything. It just says
They didn't
like
really
how
have
to
anything.
get there. Like Josephus talks about how to get there in who he quotes Nicholas of Damascus. Abraham reigned in Damascus.
Bert, come on up.
Yeah,
Bert's
that's in
here.
there.
We're
I want to
Bert, we're in
see
verse. What
5.
verse is that?
5, right?
5. Okay, you'll join shortly. We are in verse 5 of chapter 12 of Genesis. Because we're still in Genesis. And we're just trying to find out if the people they acquired, does that mean slaves? Because it sounds like slaves to me.
Let me see. Acquired on this. I do have the Strongs too, and the Brown Driver Briggs. Gathered. Gotten is what it says in the KJV. Asa. To do, fashion, accomplish, or make. So it doesn't seem to be like the same type of, I don't know, acquire, maybe.
I just don't think they're going to tell you what that, like, acquired just tells you that they got people, but what did they get them for? Are they slaves, or are they now, their friends and their in-laws? Like, it's actually babies? They made babies. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's different. That is different. See, I'm glad I asked these questions.
Babies are like, they're like fruits on trees. You could just like pick them, right? Like you could just pick them up out of the gardens.
You just acquire them as you're walking along, Okay. So then it goes on to say, Abram passed through the land of the place of Shechem to the oak of Moreh. I don't know how to say these words. And the time of the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on by stages toward Negev. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm right on where we're at. No, I haven't seen that, Lucretia. Okay, T7 said pitched his tent. Okay, I have a joke about that in a little bit too. Okay, so your uncle ancestor dude saw someone drunk and naked, okay? Mm-hmm. And his grandson goes and creates Canaan, mm-hmm. And now you're being told that your offspring get to have it all.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, that's the line of logic I follow.
And then I started thinking, I was saying that I wanted to make sure I had this right, that Abram's drunk uncle ancestor saw Noah naked, and so his grandson was cursed to Canaan, and now he's being promised Canaan. Right? Abram's being promised like his relative's land.
Where are you seeing that? Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm in
Genesis 12:6.
7, 8, 9, where he tells them that your offspring are gonna get all this land.
Mm-hmm. I guess you're where are you connecting that with Noah? I guess.
Wait, isn't Canaan Canaan from the son of
Shem?
Who was it?
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Ham.
That's a good question. I don't think
Canaan is the son of Ham.
And he's the one that got cursed, and isn't this land named after him?
Yeah, Canaan was cursed because Ham was being punished for seeing Noah.
You're right. So this was this all like some weird family vendetta against Ham's grandchildren and so on and so forth? This sounds pretty weird.
Or maybe the story is propaganda.
Grudge much? Yeah,
Oh, well,
propaganda, but also grudge
I'm
much.
very sure that that's what it is, but I was trying to
Being
line up the biblical names.
Okay, so
I was trying to line up the whole biblical names. And also, I just started thinking about Sarai. Is that how you say her name? They say she was barren, but did we really know she was barren? There was no way to test that thing back then. How do we know that Abram didn't have a low sperm count?
Well, that's what the rabbis have to deal with later, which is when that's the rabbis say that Ishmael gets kicked out because he implied that Sarah had actually biblically known the Egyptian king.
Oh.
Well, one of them she did, and one of them she didn't. I can't remember. I think it was the first one she
Yeah.
knew, and the second one God
It
warned
doesn't
them.
say that. It doesn't say it in the text, but the rabbis are saying that Ishmael was implying that that's what happened.
but Ishmael is
Gotcha.
Hagar's child, right?
Correct. Well, so like the idea is that Sarah can't conceive, and Sarah Sarah says to Hagar, "You should have a son with my husband," and then they have the baby, and then Sarah gets this annunciation in 18, and then there's that scene with the sister wife scene, the second sister wife scene, and then Ishmael is joking and saying, well, it says that Ishmael was playing with Isaac, and
or mocking Isaac.
right, yeah, exactly, and some say that he was pointing a bow and arrow at him. Some say that he was doing inappropriate things to him, and some say that he was mocking the fact that Abram was not actually his father, which is weird because Abram has a son with Hagar, right? So I think that kind of puts to bed the low sperm count thing.
Yeah, and also the timeline is way off, isn't it? Because like the Pharaoh scene happens way before the Hagar scene.
Well, you have to understand there's no actual timeline in the Torah. It's all happening at the same time. There's no biblical time. It's
Brilliant. The Bible is outside of space and time, like God.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It's all like Family Guy references. They're all just like,
exactly.
hey, remember
All
that time?
flashbacks. Yeah, exactly.
The other thing is that it mentions that then the Lord appeared to Abram, and I want to know, like, does that mean he appeared in person, or was it a dream, or is this just, like, do we know? Is there any connotation to let us know?
Is this one the Lord himself, or was it the angel of the Lord again? Because I know
it says Vayera Adonai. It's in Adonai's self appears to Abram.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I that's such a crazy contradiction where no one's seen God no one's known God except everyone has. Like all the patriarchs seem to have had face-to-face interactions with God.
Well, so I think appear can be different. It can have different meanings. So like I think face to face is one thing, but like appearing, like kind of what you were saying, can appear in a vision, can appear in a dream. There's other ways to appear, I think is what the tradition would say. But as far as the text says, it just says appeared.
Okay, it doesn't really clarify in like Hebrew or anything. I'm not missing anything on how he appeared.
It's quite
it just
simple.
says
Yep.
appeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Verses 10 through 13. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to reside there as an alien, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know well that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will unalive me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account.
This is the first of the three sister wives narratives.
Yeah.
Right. Two with Abram, Abraham, and then Isaac also gets one as well.
So he's centering himself and pimping out his wife
Yep.
because heaven forbid anything happens to him.
Yep.
Right, and I
Okay,
want
just
to point
checking.
out that, like, here's this land that his offspring is about to, like, he doesn't know when, but he knows that his offspring is going to get all of Canaan because God told him, right? And then instead of praying to God at that altar and saying, please save these people from this famine, he ditches them and goes to Egypt. What? What? And this is like, supposed to be one of our fathers that we look up to. Okay, so when shit hits the fan, y'all, just go somewhere. Just leave.
So
Yeah,
there's some really important context that goes into all of this, which is first thing, famines. So in the Bible, food equals babies. Whenever you are seeing an absence of food, the redemption is that food will come and then there will be babies. So at the end of the story, there's going to be babies is essentially the message here. And the second thing is that this story comes directly out of the Mesopotamian myths. The sister wife narrative is something that shows up in Mesopotamian mythology all the time. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is that Egypt, the Hebrew word is Mitzrayim, which literally means narrow place. And so you can think of that in both in terms of the location, but if there's a famine, it's like a dangerous passage. It's you are one wrong move and you are you're not going to make it. And the fourth thing is Vayered means to go down, right? To go down into Egypt. The idea is that he is in this holy place and he's going down into a not holy place. So what he's about to do is not a holy thing. He's leaving this spiritual plane and going down into this shithead mode, so to speak.
If you're just joining us in the live, Bert is a friend of Rabbi Hannah's and a friend of mine. And so he is also a rabbi. So I love having him here. He has so much information. If you guys have questions, you can always ask Bert.
May I quickly ask, Rabbi Bert, you said that he was going from a holy place to a non-holy place. Was that more on his personal spiritual level, or did that just really mean specifically where he was going, the city? Like, was that internal or external?
So he just got his holy mission, right? He just got this Lech Lecha, go forth, and he just set up his first altar in his relationship.
Everything looks good.
Sweet. Then I know how.
I accidentally muted you. I didn't mean to, Deborah. That was an accident. I love you. I would never mute you on purpose. Deborah, you can unmute. I didn't do it on purpose.
I think she was talking to somebody in the background or something.
Okay. I thought she was talking to us and I thought really bad. I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So the other thing is oh, no, go right ahead, Deborah. Oh, okay. The other thing I was thinking is if he's okay, there's a famine here, and I know everything that Bert just said, but just reading it as a person who was just reading it and thinking about what the word said, not knowing all of that, I was like, why didn't he just not go to Egypt if he was afraid somebody was going to kill him, or unalive him? And the other thing is he's all, hey, I know you're really beautiful, and we're in chapter 12, and I just read 10 through 13, Katrina. So he's all I know you're really beautiful, and they're gonna want you, basically. I want you guys to remember this lady's in her 70s. This is not a spring chicken.
Oh yeah, I love that part.
Yeah.
She, and she's barren. So,
And
so he's
she's a desert dweller too. She's been in the sun her whole life, living rough.
right? She's a gilf, you guys. She's a grandma, and well, she's not a grandma because she doesn't have any kids, but you know what I'm saying? This is not a young hottie.
Okay, but hear me out. Helen Mirren.
Okay, all right. You got me. You got me.
W on that one.
By the way, in the Book of Mormon, it is God who tells them to lie about her being his sister. And I'd also like to point out that he says lie and say you're my sister, but it's not really a lie now, is it? Because she's his half sister.
I think that, like, my opinion on that is just simply opinion, is that was just, they added that for the Abimelech story to make him a better guy or something. Like they thought of that later, like, oh, maybe we can make him not a liar. He's definitely a liar. Anyway, he's withholding the truth, if nothing else.
All right, so where am I? Okay. So when Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. When the officials of, so I just really have to wonder what the young maidens look like if she was the really beautiful one. I'm just saying, I'm just wondering, okay? When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, and for her sake he dealt well with Abram, and he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. Isn't that sweet? That is such a good story, you guys. So if you pimp out your wife, you can be rewarded with barn animals and slaves.
Cool. I'll make notes.
My wife is already pretty pimp, and I don't have any slaves or animals.
Okay. So, but the Lord afflicted Pharaoh. Okay, this is where it gets me. Okay,
Yeah. Get the bad guy.
Yes, the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here's your wife. Take her and be gone." And Pharaoh gave his men orders concerning him, and they set him on his way with his wife and all that he had. So here is God's unfailing mercy and justice, where you take the person who was lied to and you punish them, because that's who you should punish, right?
Really quickly, Deborah, 5-minute warning. If you're gone for 5 minutes, they'll boot you. Just a kind reminder. So
If she gets booted, bring her back up when she comes back.
Yeah, I was thrown when I read that the first time. I'm like, what? Like, how is Pharaoh the bad guy here? He didn't know what was going on. He just liked an old lady, and now this, and it gets worse with Abimelech, of course, but we can deal with that then. But I would love Bert to weigh in on, like, I've had arguments with Christians, because when I covered this, they said that Pharaoh maybe didn't sleep with Sarai, which doesn't really make that big of a difference in the story, in my opinion. But in the actual Hebrew, is it clear whether or not he made her his wife, as in slept with her, or was going to sleep with her? I mean, she went into the palace. It seems like that would have happened. But Bert,
I believe to be made a wife, you had to consummate. That's what actually made you married, was the consummation.
That's how I thought of it.
Well, I don't think there's anything here. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that says that she became Pharaoh's wife.
Oh, really? I thought it just said that.
Hold on.
Because it says that I should make her my wife, but that doesn't mean that he did. But she did come into the palace. How long was she there? Why wouldn't they have done it?
The NRSV says, "Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife?"
Yeah, took her to be my wife and my. Let me look at the SPL. Let me see what the SPL says. Oh.
But like, Bert, do you know? Can you would?
Yeah, that's interesting.
You have the Hebrew that you like. Yeah. You could.
I just also, while he's looking up, I just want to say, all hail Abram, blessed be his name.
Amen.
I just want those blessings that you get for blessing Abram. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Bless Abraham. Abraham, both. Either.
Yeah, both of them.
And Jacob and Israel.
I think he's saying this is it says Lama Marta Choti Hi Ve'ekach Ota. So that why did you say take her for your wife? Take her for a wife. And then behold, she's actually your wife the whole time. I think he is saying, like, Abram, you're like, what are you doing? Like, why did you do this to me? You set me up.
Here's the thing, though. Would Pharaoh have punished him if he hadn't done the deed with her, though? To me,
Say that one more time.
So for me, God would have only punished Pharaoh if he had slept with her, because if he hadn't slept with her, there would be no reason for God to punish Pharaoh.
Well, okay. So I'm reading like Sepharia and between this Esword thing. So what I've gathered is that like the Pharaoh would take like a harem, like any kind of beautiful woman, like in the village or town would basically, he would just be like, okay, you're now part of my harem. You are now one of my wives. And then like, since God was so, enraptured with Abram, he was like kind of like plaguing Pharaoh to like stop him from ever touching Sarai. So that's just how I take it. I don't know.
Ibn Ezra says this indicates that Pharaoh took her to be his wife to sleep with her. God brought plagues upon him to prevent him from touching her.
Yeah. Yep.
The Lord sent those plagues to protect the wife of the one whom he loved. The plagues were so severe that Pharaoh was unable to touch Sarah, which isn't in the text clearly, but
right.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is time. We know that, like, when we read the Bible, it seems like, okay, this happened the day after, this happened the day after. He had to have been there for quite a bit already, so Pharaoh would have had enough time to, like, I don't think we're talking about how this was just an overnighter. I think this would matter at least a few months.
Verse 16, and because of her it went well with Avram. He acquired sheep, oxen, donkeys. Like you don't get, like you said, you don't get, you don't become a warlord overnight.
No, you don't. So I think definitely he had slept with her. Just kind of do
That's I agree with Nick on the level that like you get a new toy and you don't play with it, Pharaoh. Like you've gone, oh, this is such a beautiful woman. You get her in your harem and you go, oh, I'm just not going to touch her for 6 weeks. Like that just doesn't seem reasonable. And I made the crass joke that the reason why Pharaoh got sick with an STI. That's what really happened. He's like, what?
Oh.
I think you might not be too far off with that.
That's hilarious.
All right, 13, 1 and 2. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into Negeb. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. Okay, how did he get so rich? Because we went from famine to getting some, barn animals and a few slaves. Now he's got silver and gold and everything. Like,
Crystal,
where does this come from?
He just lied and pimped his wife. What do you mean, where did it come from? He just told you where he got all that stuff. He has a super hot wife. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, he got sheep and cattle and donkeys and servants and camels.
I hope when I'm 70, I look as good as Sarah did, because this is just wild.
Right? This is some crazy stuff, man.
Right, because back then they looked for beauty in women so they could get pregnant and have children. That's what their main focus was. And they knew she was too old to do that. So she must have looked really young.
You must have looked good.
Yeah.
Apparently Pharaoh was into shriveled old crows. He was like...
Does anybody know the Christian Alley on here who goes up into like Sebastian and Thinker's lives and stuff? She's 70. I'm just picturing her.
No.
I don't know.
Probably, if I saw
her
it.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 and 4. Let me find myself here. He journeyed on by stages from the Negeb as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. So could you not have done this back before you traveled to Egypt and just called on the name of the Lord to end the famine? Could you not have done that? And also, do you have to always go back to, like, I picture like a video game where you have to go all the way back to your starting position to do stuff like crafts and stuff? Do you always have to go back to the altar? You can't call on the name of the Lord anywhere else, or make like an altar on the go?
Like the checkpoint.
Yeah, it's your checkpoint. It's your video game checkpoint, y'all.
It's the
That's a
ultimate
good
checkpoint.
analogy. I like that.
It's the ultimate checkpoint because the Bethel is the same place. It is the same place where, right? It's where Abraham first sets up his altar, but it's also the same place where the Akedah happens, where the binding of Isaac happens, the sacrifice of Isaac. It's also the same place where Jacob goes to put his head down on the stone and sees the angels going up and down to heaven. It's also the same place where the first and second temple were built. It's the place where God created the entire universe within the Jewish tradition. It is the most, it is called, within comparative religion, it's called the axis mundi. It's the center of the world. This is the most important place, the most holy place. So it is the ultimate checkpoint for Judaism.
Right.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad. See, this is why I like
That's
to ask
awesome.
these questions.
Also, fun fact, that AI, not AI, but like the city of Ai is also in the book of Joshua. Is in the book of Joshua. It's the place that they go before they go to Jericho, and it means destroyed city. So the question becomes, it's this ancient city of Ai. It's this, it's basically an ancient ruins. And so why does Joshua then need to go and destroy something that's already destroyed? It's a funny sort of thing.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
I means destroyed city.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, and it's I, not A, because, I knew it was going to be one of the two, and I'd always pick the wrong one. That is what I do.
It just means
Like-
heap of ruins.
They just come up on the city and they're just like, oh, well, that was easy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
keep
Moving
moving.
on. Yeah.
Okay, where did I end up on? 4, so we're on 5, right? Okay. Now Lot, who had went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them living together, for their possessions were so great that were so great that they could not live together. And there was strife between the herders of Abram's livestock and the herders of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites lived in the land. So where did Lot get all his riches from? He didn't have some wife to pimp out, did he? Am I missing something here?
Yeah. So these are warlords, and we don't see that until Genesis, when Lot's nephew, or when Abraham's nephew gets captured. I think it's at the end of 14 or the beginning of 15. Oh yeah. So if you look for, I'm sorry to jump ahead, but if you look at Genesis 14 verse 14, like chapter 14 verse 14, or 13 and 14, you'll see that Avram is for the first time named a Hebrew, which we can talk about the etymology of that word, which is like so incredibly wild. But you'll see in verse 14 that his kinsman had been taken captive. I think it's Lot's son.
His nephew, yep.
And he musters his retainers and born into his household, numbering 318. Essentially, he sends out his 318 mercenaries. He's like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. He's
Oh, wow.
if you look up the Amarna letters, which are these letters that were sent between Egypt and their vassal state in the Levant, the Hebrews or Hapirus or Habirus were essentially pew-pews for hire. They were mercenaries. They were these people who lived on the outskirts of society, they lived adjacent to society. And, they were if you look even in the Book of Kings, the Hebrews were not necessarily, they were sometimes on the sides of the Philistines and they were sometimes on the sides of the Israelites. They were not the same people. So it's kind of like squares and rectangles. Like a Hebrew can be an Israelite, but an Israelite is not necessarily a Hebrew. And so, Abram, he seems like this kind of cute, kooky old man, but in reality, he is a fierce warlord, and so is his family.
It's kind of like the Mandalorians, like in Star Wars.
Kind of. Yeah.
Exactly like the Mandalorian.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they all have to take care of a little baby Yoda. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
You guys, really quick, I need you guys to tap to 10,000 for me. I also have a heart gift goal, and they're just the one, coin hearts. When you gift, like even to the panel, which I'd love it if you gift my panel too, it just helps push out the live, and it helps me when I go live again to be pushed out to the algorithm a little bit easier each time. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we will continue now. Then Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herders and my herders, for we are kindred. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left." I didn't really have any notes about that, but it just sounded like, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Just I don't know, it sounded like a really boring way to split it up at that point. I would just think he would just be decisive. I'm gonna go here, you go there. But no, if you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. I don't know. It just seemed really kind of a boring little part of the story.
He's really laid back. He's like, hey, your call, man. Whichever way you want to go, I'll go the other way. No big whoop. Just get away from me.
I just realized I'm on the wrong profile. I'm gonna be right back, so I'm on my main.
I was wondering why I had to follow her. I was like, why? I thought I was following Nick. But
I was just going to say the other context here is that this is very similar to the Lavan and Jacob story with the goats, the speckled goats and the solid colored goats or whatever. And it ends in splitting these two camps called Machanaim, or two camps. And this notion of splitting regions is I don't know how to explain it, but it's it's boring, but it's like treaties. It's like saying we're better. I think it's this there is I don't know how to explain this exactly, but when Egypt began to fall, there was a power vacuum. And I think we're seeing some of the, from an archaeological standpoint, we're seeing some of that power vacuum exist here, right? If these Hebrews are people that were essentially mercenaries for Egypt, then they will also be able to take advantage of the fact that Egypt is losing its grip on this region.
Okay, I just want to do
too much. I'm sorry.
No, I
you're
loved
not.
it. I
Oh my
was
God, we
following
love
everything
it
you
so
said.
much.
Yeah, I'm hanging on every word you're saying.
Right? Me too. I'm like, oh yeah, I have to go back and read now. Okay. Spoiler alert for verse 10. Okay, you guys. Lot looked about him and saw that the plain of the Jordan was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, in the direction of Zor. This was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. They're telling us that ahead of time.
Spoiler alert.
How
Right?
tiny, tiny, rawr.
You sounded so angry about it. Tiny, tiny, raw. Okay.
So sorry about that.
Well, this is my first
no
time,
problem.
guys. What is Sodom and Gomorrah? I've never heard of it.
Uh-oh.
I know. That's crazy.
It literally has nothing to do with you, but you might get confused.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people call me sodomite before. I don't know why.
That's a misinterpretation. Everything's fine.
Oh, okay.
Everything's fine. So Lot chose for himself So Lot chose for himself the plain of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the plain and moved his tent as far as Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. So, in other versions, it says that Lot pitched his tent near Sodom. And I found that to be funny because I'm very immature.
I just wanted to point out that this is also like in modern times, like this is the West Bank and the East Bank of the Jordan River, the Jezreel Valley. This is like the Dead Sea area. Am I allowed to say that? The unalive sea? That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to like put a location on it. And Sodom and Gomorrah is traditionally right around the unalive sea. So stupid. Yeah. There's pillars of salt. There's pillars of salt around the unalive sea, and there's one that is supposed to be Lot's wife. You know.
Right.
I've seen that.
We get this a lot with Christians about the fact that there's so much salt in the area that it's obvious that that's where God, cursed Sodom and Gomorrah. It's
The
just
sulfur nuggets.
Exactly. Yeah. Ay.
Okay, who said sulfur nuggets? Who did that? Who did that?
Nope. Not me.
I want to point out here also that the Bible likes to say, because it said this about the people before the flood, that people were wicked and evil without telling us exactly what that wicked or evil is. And I just think if it would be more, explicit and explained to us, because remember, at this point, we don't have any commandments. So it's not like they're just falling short of the commandments. There are none yet.
There's 7.
And so they're wicked and evil without telling us what that means.
To be fair, there's 7. There's 7 commandments. There's the Noahide.
Oh, there are 7.
Yeah.
Are there 7? Where did we read them?
Yeah, it's.
I don't remember.
Like be fruitful and multiply as an example.
Oh, okay.
Honor the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sabbath.
Yeah,
isn't
so-
yet,
back in this culture, if a woman couldn't even give birth to a baby, she was considered wicked and evil, and she was to be shut out and considered unalived in her community. So even
And
that
like I
was
pointing-
considered
I was
wicked.
pointing out earlier, Petrina, in reality, we don't even know if that was the woman's fault every time. A man could have just had a low sperm count.
Exactly.
So the evil and wicked things they could do at this point are just missing 7 commandments that they have. We don't have the 10 commandments yet. We don't have the Levitical law yet. So I do know that obviously in Ezekiel, we're going to find out in Ezekiel 16:49 that really what it was pride, gluttony, slothfulness, not helping people. And if you ask me, that sounds just like pastors at mega churches.
Well,
Yep.
I was
So
gonna say,
I
that
don't
was-
know if you brought this up in Genesis chapter 6, wherein they were wicked and evil from youth, right? And then right after the flood, they're wicked and evil from youth. Where are other than be fruitful and multiply, which apparently the sons of God did that. Where do we find out how?
So, do you want those? Like, do you want the way that the rabbis interpret those? Okay, yeah. Give me a minute while I pull that up.
I don't know how they're wicked other than having been mating with angels.
While you guys take this minute, I have to drop because Seth is coming to pick me up. I'm at the office, so we share a car.
Okay,
We're old school like
thanks
that.
for coming up, Benny. I love you.
Thank you,
Tell
guys.
Seth I love him. Seth,
I'll be listening.
drive safe. Okay. And the other thing is, at this point, he's saying they're evil and wicked and stuff, but he's okay. Like, he's not like fond of, but he's okay with Schmurder because all he did was kind of punish Cain. He didn't give him like unalivement penalty or anything. And he's already committed G-side. So what is wicked compared to those things? What is this wicked?
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say from the studies that I've been studying that they lived in an honor shame society. Anything that didn't bring honor to them or their family, their heritage, would be considered wicked and evil and shameful. Even murder was an honor if it brought honor to the family. It wasn't considered wicked. But anything that would bring shame to them would be considered wicked.
So Genesis chapter 9, 1 through 7 is essentially the 7 Noahide laws. So you have
Okay.
be fertile and multiply. The fear and dread of you shall be upon all the animals. In other words, like you shall have stewardship over the land. Every creature that lives shall be yours to eat, as with the green grasses I give. So you are allowed to eat animals. However, you must not eat flesh with blood in it. That's verse 4.
I did forget about that.
But for your own lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. I will require it of every animal. So there's some sort of reckoning. And then whoever sheds human blood, by human hands shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God, humankind was. And so they exegetically derive that you should not, you shouldn't have idol worship either from this, because there's only one true God, and that this is. I'm just telling you what the rabbis are saying. I'm not
right.
Yeah. And so the 7 laws are adjudication, so some court system, anti-idolatry, anti-blasphemy, anti-schmexual immorality, whatever the hell that means, anti-bloodshed.
But I'm actually referring to prior. So Bert, if we go back to Genesis 6, prior to the Noahide laws, how did God know then what was evil and wicked? How did mankind know what was evil and wicked? It seems pretty arbitrary back then. Prior to the flood, immediately following the flood, this is prior to the Noahide laws. The only couple of commands that I can think of off the top of my head is to be fruitful and multiply and honor the Sabbath.
Yeah, I think if you look at chapter 3 with the Cain and Abel story, or is that 3 or 4? Maybe it's 4.
That's 4.
Yeah, sorry. Where God has this kind of to me, this is one of those moments where it's so clear that God is not omniscient and there's no whatever. Anyway, God says to Cain, "Why are you so distressed? Why is your face fallen? Surely if you do right, there is uplift. But if you do not do right, sin couches at the door. Its urges towards you, yet you can be its master." There is, to me, if I were God, I would be a little bit more clear about what the expectations are. Especially if I, it's the best allegory or analogy for me is a parent to a child. If I'm going to say, if I were to say to a 5-year-old, why are you upset? If you do right, then things will go well. If you don't do right, then things are going to be bad. But you get to decide what's right and wrong. Okay, but help me figure out what's right and wrong. Help me to determine. But at the same time, kids know what's right and what's wrong. And I don't know, how much of that is context versus how much of that is, the idea of self-preservation. And I don't know. Maybe that's a deeper philosophical question about morality in general. But to me, there's some evidence of some determining what's right and wrong. And by the way, that's what the whole Garden of Eden story is about too. To me, is that they've eaten this fruit and now they have the ability to determine what's right and what's wrong. And maybe that's the point. Maybe maybe it's a process of trying to understand what is right and what's wrong, and that it is more in flux than perhaps religious zealots would have you believe.
So just really quickly, sorry, Rabbi Bert, you know I love you. I gotta go because I'm going school supply shopping for my now high school student.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm crying on the inside. I love you guys so much.
I love you
Hi,
too.
Nick.
I'll see you guys later.
Okay, see you around the TikTok streets.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's finish up the chapter, and then you guys can give me your, thoughts on this. Okay. Casey, be nice to Joel. Casey got full mod privileges, y'all. He might go a little crazy now. He told me I might regret it. Okay. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, raise your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Rise up, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of the, I don't know how to say that word. Mamre. Mm-hmm. Okay, which are at Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. Okay, my little notes on this are that these verses in particular have caused unrest in the Middle East for eons now, and it is one of the reasons why I find Christianity to be so dangerous, because they take verses like this and they use it to say, I don't know, that it justifies things that it shouldn't justify at all. Any thoughts?
It does feel times. I'll let Bert go.
Well, I think the first thing is, okay, so God promises to make Abram's offspring as many as the dust of the earth, right? Can't remember, how many kids does Avram end up having?
I can't remember.
Well, so it's Isaac and Ishmael and Isaac, and then he has a second wife after Sarah unalives, and I think he has like 3 kids with her as well. And I think like one could argue that Isaac is essentially the connective tissue that produces Jacob and the 12 sons and so on and so forth. So that like, it's not that, but you have to look at what Avram's name actually means, which goes to your frustration, Crystal. Avram's name means father of many. And the tradition would say of many nations. Of many what? Of many nations. And so, in a lot of ways, like 4 billion people are claiming a connection to this person. That's half of the earth. And over the course of, 3,000 years, that's a shit ton of people. That's a lot of people. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my first thought. I have other thoughts about the effects of these verses in kind of modernity and what's going on right now. But anyway, that's where I'll sit for now.
Joel, what were you going to say?
Well, when I read it and when I was reading all of these early like Genesis stuff, I always was like, this is just propaganda to boost up this people. Whoever this is written for is just like, this is, we're great. We're going to have all of this. And it's very nationalistic and all those things, which like, I for a story, I get it. Like for that, the culture that's writing that, I get that. But it's just, it's a weird thing when you're a fundamentalist Christian to somehow take ownership of that.
Yes.
Right. Or to sort of like take that on as, look at this beautiful promise to these people. And God was so faithful to them and he loves us the same way, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? That was always a weird transition, because when I read it, it just seems so blatantly for a people at a time to big up their culture, right? And their nation and their identity.
Or a minority culture in the midst of gigantic empires. Like these people are creating a story that is, like you said, pumping themselves up. Look, I think I said this last time we did this, but Egypt and Babylon, they're like the San Francisco Giants and the LA Dodgers. The Israelites are like the Columbus Clippers. Okay, these are nobodies, and they're kind of like beating their chest because they're in a moment where they've probably pushed back against Egypt as Egypt is faltering, and they've kind of secured this moment in this power vacuum where they're able to start to build this mini empire, and they're trying to create this conglomeration of various tribes and various traditions and various stories, and so like they need to find a way to come together, and like I think we're a little bit anachronistically imposing this idea of nationalism, but I think the effects are the same.
Yeah, and again, I can respect what was going on in real life at the time for those people, right? And that it makes sense that they would want to do that. It's just weird when you believe it as something absolutely true and you can't see that that's what's going on, type of thing, right?
And I think this is where I get really uncomfortable. And so just please do not, for lack of a better word, crucify me for what I'm about to say. But these are, I'm going to really stick my neck out there, and I'm not trying to make any comment on today's conflict. I just want to preface what I'm going to say on that. Okay. I'm nervous. I spoke to Crystal about this privately. I get really nervous about this because I don't want to my reputation means a lot to me, and I don't want to speak presumptuously or anyway. These are indigenous stories. These are stories that these people who have a very strong connection to the land have created to demonstrate their connection to the land and the resources that exist there. And those connections have existed for thousands of years. And those connections have given way to the tradition that has become Judaism. And I think what you're commenting on, Joel, is the fact that Christianity, which has become entirely bastardized from this connection to the land, still kind of claims these stories as their own, which to me is the definition of cultural appropriation. And I think where Jews are kind of uncomfortable is that Christians and Muslims have essentially said there's this thing called the Abrahamic religions, and it's what? You maybe if it's
And we say it too. I'm not gonna lie. I've used that term so many times, not thinking what I'm saying is that it's okay that they appropriated it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying. Like I said, I'm not trying to make too big of a commentary. I think I'm just kind of observing this system, this very clearly closed system. And by the way, Baruch Spinoza comments on this also in his treatise. He says the fact that anything exists outside of its original context, specifically Judaism, he thinks is absurd. He thinks it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's where this, for me, in the Judaism thing, where it becomes fuzzy between this indigenous thing and even Judaism appropriating in some way this. I don't want to get into it too much. I think I'm not. It's too half-baked a thought for me to actually comment on.
When I was talking, I was in a live with Rebel Rabbi, and I asked her about Jews for Jesus or Messianic Jews because they were really popular in my family. My mom wishes she was Jewish, and but as a Christian. But she was like, "Oh yeah, that's appropriation. Full stop. Right? That's crazy appropriation." And so I get what you're saying. It happens across the board. So more there's, I guess, a spectrum of appropriation, it seems. But I don't really want to comment on the current state of affairs, and that's not what I always look when I'm reading the Bible. I'm reading it from a place, really, quite honestly, of being raised fundamentalist Christian, and so that's the framework. And when I read it, that's what I'm attacking. When I do my YouTube, that's kind of what I'm attacking with it, because that's what I know. So when I read it and I go, this is propaganda, right? It's me not. I'm not attacking the real people that wrote this stuff. I'm not attacking anything except for those people who take it on themselves and, like you say, appropriate it, and then but it seems so inappropriate and like way off from what it actually was. So yeah, it's all, I guess, different perspectives, but it is. I appreciate you, Bert, because you, of course, are teaching me a lot, and all of us here, about kind of the Jewish way of understanding this stuff, and that's really interesting.
The last thing I kind of want to say on this, and then I'll stop talking, I promise, is that like there are in a Jewish wedding, which I think is within the Jewish context is like the statement of radical hope of the continuation of Judaism. There are 7 blessings that are said at the end of the wedding, and these blessings have been said since the 3rd century, like BCE. So we have literally over 2,000 years of these blessings being said, and a lot of them were in response to the destruction of the first temple. And the last blessing, the 7th blessing, which is like the statement of radical hope, it goes like this: "Blessed are you, ruler of the universe, who creates happiness and joy for the bride and groom, exaltation, delight, amusement, yada yada yada." And it says, "Soon, Adonai our God will cause the sound of happiness and joy for the bride and groom in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem." And it's like, to me, it's like there is a clear connection throughout history. And I think what pains me the most is people being unalived. That pains me the most. But what also pains me is that people are trying to undermine the Jewish connection to this place. And I think that it is possible for people to both accept that Jews have a connection to Israel, and also for people to not unalive each other for the sake of a 2,000-year-old story. And I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but I think there are far greater contradictions that are accepted as reality.
And Bert,
I do want to point out, though, that I didn't, I had adopted into this Messianic faith that you're talking about, and it was never my intention. It never even occurred to me that Christianity was appropriating a closed practice. So while people do it all the time, I had a ketubah, I had what would be considered a Jewish wedding, but I didn't know any better. I do now, and I've publicly said that was wrong. But I think many people don't understand that they're being offensive.
Yeah, I don't think most people, I would say by and large, most people don't want to do things that are wrong or hurtful. But yeah, it's usually out of ignorance. Like I know that my mom's a good person, but there's just a lot of ignorance there. But I just want to and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but Bert, do you think that the truth of where Jewish people come from, the land, is more gives them more, I'm going to say this way, and you can just correct me and jump all over me if I say this wrong, gives them more of a right to the land than the story? Like the myth feels like they were aliens there, but then in real life, it seems like they were Canaanites. They just came out of the same people group, like you say, the indigenous people of the land.
Yes, I think that your latter statement is far more accurate. It's called the pastoral emergent theory, which is one that I subscribe to wholeheartedly, that there was a power vacuum left by the faltering Egypt, and that these previously warring tribes banded together. In fact, if you give me just a minute, I'll pull up a slide that I give in a presentation that shows the ways in which these tribes came together. In fact, here, give me one. I'll just
it's like the book isn't doing anyone any favors, is what I'm getting at. Like the story.
That's the thing. The book isn't for anybody else, and I think that's what ends up happening. Like the book is, the stories we tell ourselves. It's like, and I think early on people realized that the book was going to be used by other people, but like, it's like they're like family stories. It's like it has nothing to do with other people, I guess. Which is I don't know if that's even intellectually honest, but
well, they're interesting. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't going to say. I was just going to say they're really interesting stories. You can tell that they're written like they're creative. So, I mean, there's too many barren women, and there's too much pimping. They repeat it too many times. But like, it's like creative writing. It seems more than anything. It's like so just don't take it seriously and enjoy it.
Could you imagine?
Sorry, Deborah. Sorry.
Could you imagine going and finding like this beautiful, huge botanical gardens, and there's a family reunion there of like 150, 200 people. And you walk in and you crash the party and you're like, I'm part of the family. And they got photo albums out there and they're like, yeah, that's my relative right there. How weird would that freaking be?
It's very
and
weird.
this is the exact same thing.
Yeah. I want to respond to a comment in the chat as well, but this is the Intel Gezer, which is it's called the Shvela. It's like the lowlands between the coastal plain and Jerusalem. It's like the hill country. There are these 10 standing stones that archaeologists believe are 10 tribes that came together to create like a mini. And this is, by the way, I think maybe like 10 to 20% of archaeologists think that this has anything to do with the ancient tribes of Israel, but most think it doesn't. But I think it's a good demonstration of the fact that this was happening in this region in the late Bronze Age, that people were coming together. And this took a lot of effort. These things are like 12 feet tall. I mean, they're huge. Anyway. I wanted to respond to Casey's comment that Jesus poo-pooed all over the Jews. I think I said this last time that both Christianity and Judaism are a response. Early Christianity and early and Second Temple Judaism are both a response to the destruction of the temple in the year 70 by the Romans and asking, what should we do now? And Christianity says, well, we don't need sacrifice anymore because the last sacrifice was made. And Judaism says, well, we're going to maintain our schedule of sacrifice, but instead of animals sacrifice, we're going to create this system of prayer that imitates the metaphors that are of the sacrifice, so that if and when the temple is restored, we know exactly what to do and when.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understand one thing right as we continue on in Genesis and into these stories. So now Abram is in Canaan. And so are we saying the Israelites actually are Canaanites?
Yes.
No, they're two separate groups. Like Israel doesn't become Israel until Jacob wrestles with this Ish, this man at the Yabok River, like that. And by the way, they like left Canaan at that point. Like they're not really there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard it. I guess from an Old Testament scholar I studied with, but he said they actually were Canaanites in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I had heard recently too, but I wanted to check with
Oh,
Bert on that.
archaeologically, yes. I would say archaeologically, like there are many different. That's what I was trying to say with the standing stones. That like there are all these different tribes that are responding to the fact that they no longer have to pay taxes to Egypt. I don't think that Israel was ever slaves in Egypt, but they were probably slaves to Egypt in the sense that they were paying taxes as a vassal state. And so you have these tribes that are like, while the cat's away, the mice will play sort of thing. And like you have all these different villages and tribes that are now coming together. So I think like if you look up the pastoral emergent theory, that's pretty much what that is.
All right. Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay, you know what I'm going to do? It's our final thoughts. And next week we'll be going over, I think chapter 14 is big enough, long enough, maybe we'll do 15 too. Maybe I'll prep both and we'll see how much time we have for them. But we'll do chapter 14 for sure and possibly 15 as well. Tracy, any final thoughts, and do you want to promote yourself?
I think we should do 2 next week because they're both kind of short. But
okay.
I think I'm going to go live in like an hour if you guys want to hang out.
All right.
I do lives where I, have conversations with people and ask them to teach me something. And it's fun. We have fun. Okay, bye.
We do. We do have fun. I taught her how to find the value on an item you own that you might want to sell. And she found some good information on some music equipment. And I told her how to find information on a book you might want to value. So she got to learn that from me. If you have something you want to teach Tracy, her lives are awesome. And you just, chat with her and teach her something that you know that she might not know. Deborah, any final thoughts?
Not really. I'm sorry I missed some of that. My roommate came in with some hopefully really good news. But yeah, I apologize for the interruption. That's it. Bert, always a pleasure hearing your deep wealth of knowledge.
I'm going to make a video, Deborah, and Deborah and I are going to go live on Saturday for her book. Read it. You have several days to read it. It's a great book. Get it read, and let's do our book club and interview with Deborah Saturday morning. I forget exactly what time, but I'll put a video up in a little bit, and you'll know because I'll post it in the Discord. But Deborah,
Pacific
thank you.
Time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember if I said
down.
9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Okay. All right, Big T, I know you were really quiet, but I want to thank you for coming up. Do you have any final thoughts, questions, or anything?
Yeah, well, I guess I mean, I know this is like on my brain today, so I apologize if this has been a running topic with me, but it does seem like it is kind of a common theme throughout the Bible that kind of indigenous cultures are kind of thrown aside, right? Like sometimes I look at like the Egyptians and see, that sometimes they're one of the most superior indigenous cultures around, like the Mayans and others. And so there almost seems like at times a kind of like revenge aspect, and that seems to me echo throughout the eternities involved with Christianity, right? Like they really kind of don't. They're happy to co-opt another language, another religion. They're happy to co-opt, and take credit for many things that they don't really have credit for, And it just seems to be something that continues on, like to this day. The
and whatever they don't co-opt,
yeah.
they destroy.
Right. And it seems like, that is a common theme that we see even from the beginning. I don't know much about the Bible, but I know this is kind of where it starts, right? I mean,
right.
So we're already talking about these themes and we're not that far into the book, so it was just kind of a stark thing to see just on today's reading that it is so I don't know. It's not taken seriously. It's like they care so much about their culture, but when it comes to other cultures, it's neither here nor there. So.
Yep. Hey, while did you have anything you wanted to promote, Big T? You got any
Oh,
lives?
not so much. I mean, I don't run a live. I don't have enough followers yet. If like, music and nature content, that's kind of what I try and do. Big proponent of the national park system and the Audubon Society. So, if you're looking for a break and just want to have some nice tunes and some nice visuals, stop by my page. It's totally laid back, so it's kind of my cover. I like to do this, and I use my page as, something to throw TikTok off my tracks. But I am very passionate about the videos that I make, so if that makes sense.
Make sure you give Big T a follow. And you brought up a good point about Egypt that I forgot to bring up when we went over the verse. But it is kind of weird to me that this God is the one who punished the Pharaoh. Didn't Pharaoh already have his own God? Like, why is some other God that is not his God punishing him? Isn't that kind of weird?
Pharaoh is God. In their belief structure, Pharaoh is the God.
Oh, so Pharaoh is the God, and then he's getting punished by this other God.
Yeah, and there's a lot of parallels between that first sister wife story and like the Exodus story of like the plagues and Pharaoh and all of that. Like, and that's sorry, it's not my turn yet. I'm sorry.
No, it is your turn, actually. You're next.
Oh, perfect. Well, I was just going to say, even though there is this canonical order to the text, it's not necessarily the order in which it was written. And so, like, when we're reading it, yes, we're reading it as one contiguous text, but in reality, it is, I don't know if you've ever seen like a geology chart where there's various layers of the Earth's crust, and some layers might be above certain layers and that sort of thing. But in other words, this is a tapestry that is spoken and written over the course of, really 1,000, 1,500 years. So we just so happen to be seeing the final redacted text, and not necessarily the order in which it was written. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing, it's not a promotion for me, but I wanted to share this book with everybody. It's called The Art of the Biblical Narrative. Yeah, The Art of the Biblical Narrative by Robert Alter. If you're interested in understanding how the Bible is in conversation with itself, he uses this system called type scenes. So if I were to say to you something along the lines of, it's high noon, there's dust blowing in the town, maybe a tumbleweed blowing across the street, and I would ask you, Crystal, like, what's about to happen?
Oh, I don't know. Is it going to be a showdown?
Exactly, a showdown at high noon, right? And what kind of door are they standing in front of when it happens?
Saloon.
Oh, those.
Exactly.
Yeah, saloon
and if
door.
I were to tell you there's two people, what color are their hats?
One's black and one's white.
Exactly. And what's the guy in the white hat's famous talent?
He's a sharpshooter. Oh,
exactly.
pew-pewer.
Fastest pew-pew in the West. And sometimes he'll use a 6 pew-pewer, and sometimes he'll use a rifle. And Robert Alter talks about this, but the Bible has the same. These are called type scenes. We know exactly what's going to happen. And so, for example, every time we see a well, we know there's going to be a wedding. For the sister wives, or the famine in the land, we know there's going to be some, great prosperity and babies. Annunciation type scenes are a type scene, and actually that carries over into the Christian Bible also. Anyway, if you're interested in understanding how the Bible is in conversation with itself and how the Bible uses these kinds of type scenes, this is a wonderful book, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. You guys give me so much reading material. My list is getting larger and larger. Bert, do you make content or do you go live yourself?
I am involved with, I'll say this, there is a wonderful content creator whose name is "Why Are We Here?" question mark exclamation point question mark exclamation point, and she hosts extremely productive political lives, typically in the evening. And it is my home base. It's where I am most comfortable and where I feel like I'm doing the best work that I can possibly do. And she has developed a really strong group of people who show up on a regular basis, and we do basically political deconstruction is really what the goal is.
Awesome.
Yeah, Socratic learning.
Why are we here? Question mark, explanation point, question mark, explanation point. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I'm typing in the chat.
Alrighty.
I think it's at Phoenix Risings or something like that. But if you're interested, you can. If you follow me, and this is no, shameless plug. But if you follow me, I'll typically be on live with her every night around 10 p.m. Pacific Coast time.
Awesome. Well, thank you as always, for being here. We just love your knowledge, and you never talk too much. Don't even worry about it. We talk over each other sometimes, and we all know how to shut each other up in this group. So never worry about it. Joel, how are you today, Joel?
Well, thank you. I think everyone in this live probably knows what I'm up to. Probably subscribes on my YouTube, hopefully. But I just to speak to what we were talking about, I find it so fascinating to growing up like evangelical or fundamentalist. You have a very narrow view surprisingly narrow view from what you're told of this book, and then to kind of get that blown up just by reading it, right? And then to read it and then have somebody like Bert or Rebel Rabbi or just really anyone in our community, Deborah, Justin, who will come along and go, hey, by the way, here's some more information that you didn't realize was in there. And then you go, holy crap. And then to even get it blown up even more, where it's like, oh, and by the way, none of it actually happened, but it came from this, and this was what actually was happening at the time. You're like, oh my goodness. So it's really, this community is amazing, just to like kind of blow your mind constantly over, what you thought you knew was just like nothing. It was like complete false, way wrong. So I love this stuff, and it's really fun. So thank you, Crystal, for setting the stage and putting on these lives and everything like that. And I love you all, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too, Joel. I have to tell you something funny. I was on Thinkers Live this morning, and were you there in the morning or just in the evening?
I was a little bit on both.
Okay, so did you hear her talk to me?
Yeah, that part, no.
She said, I'd really like to meet the deaconess sometime. She said, when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Does Joel know? She goes, I was going to message you on Discord, but I was afraid maybe Joel didn't know, and I was going to blow your cover.
Oh, that's crazy. Now, when her whatever it was, prompt, you guys were talking about my anger in her Discord.
Yeah,
like,
it just reminded us of yours. Like it just made us think that she's taking a different approach this time. She's like, I'm hurt and I'm mad, and I was like, no, I didn't bring it up. Somebody else did actually, and said that kind of the librarian. I can't think of her librarian something. I can't remember her whole username. But yeah, she said, that reminds me of Joel.
Yeah, when I saw it, I go, did I inspire Thinker? I wouldn't take any kind of credit, but I'm like, she has been in my lives and now she's mad too, But obviously totally different angle. Maybe a little bit. And that's a huge compliment to me. But yeah, I was like, this feels oddly similar. But yeah. Very interesting.
Librarian Amber. Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was really funny. The deaconess. I never would have, like if she ever tells me I can, I'll show up. But otherwise, I would probably never bring the deaconess to Thinkers Live without permission ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
She would destroy the deaconess, but anyway, yeah.
oh my God, the deaconess will cry. She'll cry when she leaves there. Patrina, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Crystal. I'm glad I was able to make it
Absolutely.
today. I want to go on your studies every Wednesday, and I always seem to miss it somehow.
Well, I'm glad you made it today. Did you have any final thoughts and anything you'd like to promote?
No, I would like to get more followers if I can. I'm trying to get 10,000 so I can create a playlist. So if you guys don't follow me, if you don't mind sending me a follow, I will follow you back. I just want to reiterate what Joel said. When I found out that, especially Genesis, that it's got multiple authors, other stories were brought into it, like Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the poem of sheep and grain, all that stuff was brought into this, and they was using it for their culture, to explain their culture. I actually follow this Old Testament scholar here on TikTok. His name is Theologos. He is a Christian, but he's not a regular Christian. I don't know how I can explain that, but he understands that the Bible is not what Christians say it is. He has studied the Old Testament as the culture and the context shows, and he explains it exactly what it is. And I've learned so much from this man. And he's the one that I purchased his books, and he's the one that explained to me all about Genesis and how it was created and what it actually means. And so, yeah, if you guys don't follow him, and you will learn a lot from him. But I appreciate you having me on, and I'm a sponge right now, learning everything I can. And like you said, Crystal, I've got a list of books to buy. I've already purchased 12 books this year. So, yeah, I'm just a sponge right now.
If you don't have Christ before Jesus on your list, it needs to be.
Yeah, actually, I was the very first one to get an autographed signed book of his. So yeah, thanks, Deborah.
That's awesome. All right, y'all. Well, it's that time. I will see you around the TikTok streets. Thank you so much. Oh, I didn't give you guys my final thoughts. My final thoughts are, I really just didn't learn much. I'm just kidding. I learned a lot from Bert, and I'm really glad you're here. I think that every time I read a chapter again right now, I do have to ask myself, what the hell was I doing the first time I read this? How did I believe all of this stuff, and why didn't I question any of it? I just don't know where my brain was at. I don't know. And I get disappointed in myself as I go on. I'm like, how did you not? I don't know.
I feel like a fool, right?
Yeah, I just feel very foolish. But I feel great now that I am learning the truth, that I'm learning the history, that I'm learning about the people, that I'm learning about why they wrote these stories. I don't know, I feel like I'm in an age in my life where I'm ready to really learn, and that feels good. That feels good. So I have to,
Crystal,
take that.
Hopefully my second book helps explain some of that.
Awesome. I can't wait for your second book. Your first book is amazing, so I'm really excited about that.
Deborah's book is on my list of purchases.
It's a great book. All right, you guys, I love you. I'll see you around the TikTok streets. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.